Welcome back to the Economic Sutra, everybody. We're on episode 9 already.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It really does. Today, we're heading back to ancient India to check out its economic foundations.
Always a fascinating trip.
But before we get into it, let's give a shout out to Audiocast Lab India.
The folks making this all possible.
Exactly. They're the wizards behind the scenes.
Yeah.
If any of you out there are thinking about starting your own podcast.
You know who to call.
Seriously, they're the best. Okay, let's get back to ancient India. You brought some really cool sources about the Varna system.
Definitely goes beyond just jobs.
It's about how ancient Indian society was structured.
At its core, yeah. Picture ancient India, a civilization overflowing with knowledge and wisdom, right? And in their oldest texts, like the Rig Veda, they talk about this Varna system, divides society into 4 main groups.
Okay, 4 groups. Who are
They got the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras.
All right, break it down for me. What did each one do?
Think of the Brahmins as the scholars, the deep thinkers, the keepers of knowledge.
So the priests, the teachers.
Exactly, the ones exploring the spiritual and intellectual stuff. Then you've got the Kshatriyas, the warriors.
The rulers, the protectors.
Right on, maintaining order, defending the land, making sure everyone's safe.
So Brahmins for knowledge and spirituality, Kshatriyas for protection and leadership. Makes sense. What about the other 2?
The Vaishyas, they were the merchants, the traders, the artisans, the skilled craftspeople.
The backbone of the economy.
Yeah, creating goods, trading, keeping things moving.
And last but not least,
The Shudras. They provided those essential services, the labor, supporting the other 3 groups, keeping everything running smoothly.
it's amazing how this system reaches every part of society. But here's the thing. When people hear Varna, they think you're stuck in a role you're born into. Is that right?
That's a pretty common misunderstanding, actually. The original idea of Varna, the way it's described in the Rig Veda, was super flexible. It wasn't about forcing people into roles just because of who their parents were.
So you're saying it wasn't like you're born into this family, so you're going to be a warrior no matter what?
Not at all. The point was to encourage people to find their place based on what they were good at and what they were interested in.
To contribute in a way that felt right for them.
Exactly. So if your skills changed or you wanted to try something new, you could move between Varnas.
Wow, that's so different from what most people think. So you have this system made for collaboration. Everyone chips in based on what they're good at.
Like a well-oiled machine.
But if it was so flexible, how did things change? Why do we hear so much about rigid caste systems in India?
Well, that's where things take a bit of a turn. Over time, a new system popped up called Jati.
And I'm guessing it had a different impact.
Very different.
Okay, before we get into Jati, I want to remind everyone about the awesome books we've listed in the show notes.
Always good for deeper dives.
They really shed light on all the details of Varna and Jati and why they're so important to Indian history.
Don't miss those.
You can find them on Amazon and Flipkart. The links are right there in the show notes. All right, back to Jati. This is where things get a little more complicated.
A little less idealistic, even.
All right, tell me more. How is Jati different from Varna?
So Varna was all about being flexible and finding your spot based on what you're good at.
Right.
Jati, on the other hand, it was all about hereditary caste divisions, like your role in society, your job, even your social standing, all predetermined by the caste you were born into.
So, like, if you were born into a family of weavers, even if you were amazing at metalworking, too bad.
Pretty much.
That sounds incredibly limiting.
It was. That's exactly what happened. Your Jati was your path. It didn't matter what you were good at, what you wanted to do.
Wow. That's the opposite of Varna. We were just talking about how in Varna, people could change roles based on their skills.
That's right. The shift from Varna to Jati, that was a big turning point in ancient India, a much stricter social order, and that had some major effects, not just on society, but on the economy, too.
So when things went from flexible to fixed, did that impact ancient India's economic development?
It definitely did. Remember how Varna could have led to a really strong economy, people specializing, working together?
Yeah, you mentioned specialization was key for things like textiles. Did Jati mess that up?
You got it. Think about it.
Yeah.
If someone was born into a family of weavers, but they were a natural at metalworking.
Their talent was wasted.
Under the Jati system, yeah. They'd be stuck weaving no matter what.
It's like society was holding itself back, not letting people use their talent.
Exactly.
And wouldn't that stifle innovation, too?
Absolutely. When people are limited to specific jobs just because of their birth, they can't really experiment, try new things, push the boundaries. And that lack of innovation, it had a ripple effect on the whole economy.
So instead of encouraging people to hone their skills, to find what they're passionate about, the system was basically saying, stay in your lane.
And sadly, it led to other problems too. Remember how Varna was all about working together? All four groups contributing to society?
Yeah, like different parts of an orchestra.
Well, with Jati, that started to break down.
Instead of working together, each group was more focused on themselves.
Yeah, more concerned with their own caste's interests than the good of everyone. And this fragmentation in society made things worse for the economy too. Trade and commerce suffered because different Jatis weren't as willing to work together.
So not only was individual potential being stifled, but the fabric of society was being weakened too.
It really shows that when we create these strict social hierarchies and limit opportunity, we all pay the price, not just socially but economically as well.
It makes you think about how our societies are structured today. What can we learn from all of this? From Varna and Jati? Can we use these insights to build fairer and more dynamic economies in the 21st century?
Yeah, it's amazing to think about how relevant a system from ancient India can be for us today. But, like we've been saying, that shift from Varna to Jati, it really highlights how social structures affect the economy.
It really does. I mean, sure, Jati had its issues, but those original Varna principles, like recognizing talent, encouraging people to find their niche based on their skills,
That's powerful stuff.
it offers a lot of insight for building a better, more equitable society, even today.
So we can still learn from that earlier flexible Varna system, even though Jati became so rigid and limiting.
For sure. It all comes down to recognizing that everyone has value, no matter their background, creating a system where they can contribute their talents.
Empowering people to go after what they're passionate about.
Exactly. That's what leads to a dynamic and innovative economy.
So we got to move away from these systems that box people in. Right. We got to embrace systems that see and cultivate individual potential. Invest in education, create opportunities for everyone to develop their skills.
Level the playing field. Make sure everyone has a shot at success based on what they bring to the table, not the circumstances of their birth.
Exactly.
It's like what you were saying before about collaboration. Both Varna and Jati show us how important or damaging that can be for economic growth.
Absolutely. Just like those different Varnas were supposed to work together for the good of everyone, we need that same unity and cooperation today.
Break down those barriers between groups, encourage understanding.
And recognize that we all depend on each other. That's key for a thriving economy.
It's about realizing we're all in this together. We all benefit when everyone can contribute what makes them special.
That's the beauty of it.
When everyone feels valued, empowered, when we celebrate innovation. That's when we see incredible growth and progress.
Well said. Maybe looking back at these systems, Varna and Jati, understanding their strengths and weaknesses.
It helps us appreciate what makes a society just and successful.
It's all connected.
Wow. This has been an incredible journey through ancient India's economic systems, learned some surprising things about Varna and Jati, and even picked up some lessons for today.
Always something to learn from the past.
If you're as into this stuff as we are, check out those books in the show notes. They'll really give you a deeper look at these systems and how they affected Indian society.
Yeah, definitely worth a read.
You can find them on Amazon and Flipkart. Links are right there in the show notes. And hey, if this has got you thinking about sharing your own thoughts with the world, maybe start a podcast.
Put yourself out there.
Audiocast Lab India can help you every step of the way. They'll help you craft your message, make sure your podcast sounds amazing.
They're the pros.
They're the best. Join us next time for another episode of the Economic Sutra, where we'll be diving into the idea of eminent domain and property rights in ancient India.
Should be fascinating.
Until then, thanks for joining us on this exploration of ancient India's economic wisdom. We'll see you next time on the Economic Sutra.